Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Omega Insight. Again, I'm going to remind you the website is up and running www.omegavector.org, the omegavector.org. And from there, you can register for our Omega 1, which will be July 9th through the 11th. Just go to the programs and you can register right online. Tonight, I want to continue on with the thought of irrational ideas. Remember, last week we discussed irrational ideas that cause and sustain us, or cause and sustain emotional disturbances. And I think I overlooked the idea of why we do this. We get wrapped up in these thoughts, whether we're told this is what we should do, something we picked up along the way. But remember, these are irrational ideas. Irrational ideas are not really anything new. Sometimes irrational ideas work, like thinking outside the box. People who thought the Earth was flat, or will never be able to fly, or will never go to the moon or Mars. Now, those are irrational ideas at some time until proven wrong. I'm talking more about irrational ideas that upset our emotional disturbances. These are really connected to our emotions and what triggers us. And when we recognize what's triggering us as an irrational idea, then we can work on saying, oh, I don't have to go this way. I could choose to be another way. As I said, these irrational ideas oftentimes disturb our peace and prolonged. It's continued. The more we revisit, the more we go over it, the more we think it in our head, we keep suffering. Like Einstein said, the definition of insanity, to continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So when we have this result that keeps going on and on, or we keep thinking, if I think it this way, I think this way, and I keep revisiting, and I keep suffering, it's a vicious loop. And that's why it's a prolonged, sustained emotional disturbance. So the next idea, the one that I left off at, this next one is it's the idea that we should be very upset about other people's problems and disturbances. We should take it on as if it's ours. Now, this occurs, I'm certain, because we think, oh, we're compassionate, we want to be there for people, we want to help them. And then the line crosses over from me being helpful to me enabling you. The fact that I keep coming in and rescuing you, you don't learn how to stand up on your own 2 feet. I like to use the illustration, if we never let our children crawl and fall, they'll never develop the muscles to stand. Like they have to have the experiences that, but because we feel like, oh no, I can't let you suffer, oh no, it's too hard for me to watch you suffer, we swoop in and rescue them, and before you know it, they are completely dependent upon us. So we have this idea that we should be very upset and get involved in it. you know um, Gossip is another thing that comes here. We talk about it to everybody that we know. What do we do? And we talk, and then it we get the rescuers who come in, because it before we know it, it takes 10 people to solve one person's problem. And they're doing it, and they're letting other people take care of them. So again, yes, compassion, absolutely, but remember the fine line between assistance and enabling. Unfortunately, we do this a lot with our children. We don't want them to suffer. Obviously, what parent wants their child to suffer? But we have to remember to pull back, do as best we can, and once they leave the house, be there to support them, but not to rescue them. The next one is the idea that we are inevitably, that there is inevitably a right, precise, and perfect solution to every problem that we have. This is an irrational idea. There is no right solution. There is no perfect solution. And there is no way of saying, do this and you'll never suffer. No, of course not. But we get wrapped up in that. And sometimes that's why we don't take a solution that's right in front of us. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. Now, I'm not saying that there may be a better way, but the thing I'm addressing is people who are frozen waiting for the right answer when they could just take the answer and move forward, or an answer and move forward. Some people just wait and wait. No, I've got to wait. No, there's got to be another way. And the thing I think about here is that old joke, there's a minister and he preaches all the time about the strength of God and God will save you. And of course, there's a storm and a flood evolves, and the basement to the church gets flooded, and then the first level is flooded. So he's standing on the steps, and a boat comes by, and they say, come on, we'll help you." He's like, "No, no, no, God shall save me." And then, of course, the flooding goes. He goes up to the second level, and then another boat comes by and says, "Hey, hey, come on, we'll help." "No, no, 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 no. God will save me. I'm fine." And then finally, the water gets up to the roof, and he's up on the roof, and a helicopter comes swinging by and says, "No, no, no. God shall save me. I am fine. God shall save me." And then, sure enough, he drowns. And when he gets to heaven, he says to God, "What happened? You're supposed to save us. You're the strength." And God looks at him and says, "What are you talking about? I sent you two boats and a helicopter." So sometimes we get stuck on that irrational thought, thinking we know, or there's got to be a better way, and we miss the opportunity to take something to get us out of that right then and there, which of course causes prolonged suffering. Oh, and this is another one. This is one of my favorite ones. The irrational idea that we should expect an earnest ear and respectful adherence when we are speaking. In other words, everyone should stop talking because I am now speaking. I'm guilty of this, I can tell you that, because in the classroom, you're trying to run facility, you're trying to run activities. It's very difficult when there's side conversations going on. We have, agreements to help us continue on, but it's still, there in early in my life, I used to get quite annoyed. I'm like, hello. Now today, I just kind of just stop talking. Not so much because I want you to listen to me, but I'm really trying to deliver an activity. And by you speaking, you're disturbing what's happening. But there still is the idea that when we're talking with our family and friends and no one's listening, we get upset because, hey, I'm speaking. Why aren't you listening to me? I'm speaking. This connects us to arrogance. And then what happens is we get upset about it and we mull over it. That person didn't listen to me. That person, when they speak, I'm not going to listen to them. We get retaliatory. And then, of course, that the loop cycles, and our peace is disturbed. Sometimes people wake up in the middle of the night. I can't believe that person. So actually, this is a list of things that do wake us up in the middle of the night because we're constantly thinking about. We haven't let it go yet. We're just thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, and thinking about it. Another irrational idea is that we have the right to collect on any debt because we've given to people. Oh, I've given you some food and I've given you money and I've given you the ear and a shoulder to cry on and an ear to listen to. I need you now, so I'm calling on my debt. That's irrational. I'm sorry to laugh at this, but that's not giving, that's conditional giving. And when you have conditional giving, you don't collect on your debts. You give because, unconditional giving, you give because you can. When you have conditional giving, it exposes you that it never truly was a gift. You were laying a seed for a collection, kind of like, I have my mark. You have my mark now. And now I can call on you anytime I want. That is a very irrational thought. We give because we can, because we want to be compassionate, not because we want you to be in service and owe me for something. Another irrational idea is when somebody passes on, the greatest way that I can express my love for them is to miss them tremendously, and all I do is talk about them, and I mourn for them. And now, mourning, absolutely appropriate, brings closure. I'm talking about people who cannot move on because, oh, it means that I don't love him anymore. Oh, if I start dating, that means I didn't love them anymore. And oh, I'm forgetting about them and I don't want to forget them. And I'm being disrespectful because I'm not bringing them up every 30 seconds. That's a very irrational idea. If you think about it, the thing I like to say is, would the person who passed away approve of what you're doing right now? Or would they want you to continue to move forward? And I think I'm not there. I didn't do that. But my suspicion is, of course, they'd want you to continue living your life. I've been around some people who have passed, and that's one of the things that they say. I want you to keep living your life. Don't mourn and don't waste your energy for something that's already passed. Live your life, go find fulfillment and continue on living. But somehow we have this idea that, oh, I'm being disrespectful because I'm not talking about them anymore. And that's, again, an irrational idea, which causes the emotional upset and disturbances. The next one is that our trust should only be reserved for people who are just like us. And when somebody who has crossed us, we should never trust them again. I addressed this a little bit last week with forgiveness, but I want to just go to the first part of this, that we should only trust people who are like us. That's an irrational thought. Because where do I begin with that one? The idea that trust, again, not a blanket trust, be mindful, be aware of what you're doing, but trust should always be something right off the bat. We talked about this earlier in the year, how the value of trust is, once it's broken, it's more difficult to reestablish than some of the other values that we carry. But notice this, you're quicker to trust someone who's like you than to somebody who's opposite of you. Without getting political, most of the time I've experienced, oh, you're a Republican. Yes, I trust you. And you're a Democrat. Oh, I don't, if you're a Republican. And if you're a Democrat, oh, don't trust the Republicans no matter what. And, I've seen families being torn apart over this. Um, we have to be wary of that. Everyone has a right to their own opinion, and you can trust people who are not of your camp. Trust them to be who they are and look for characteristics and qualities, not just what they're preaching about. And this is a hard one because I know that when it comes to trust, we're trepidatious. And honestly, when I think about it, I read something recently where it doesn't matter what color your skin is, what religion, what God you pray to, what background or nationality you are, you're a human being. And as a human being, I should trust you. If I'm in alignment, not if I'm in alignment, but if I sense and clear that you are trusting, and if I'm in alignment with the goal that you're going. I mean, we may not agree on everything, but let's say we're both going to a certain path, I should trust you if I feel like your intention is pure. And that's the question I'm often asked: how do you know if someone's intention is pure? Well, that's what trust is about. The more you trust an individual and they prove themselves trustworthy naturally, then you understand their intention is clear, but it's got to be the first step. And here's a tricky one too. In order for people to trust you, you have to trust them first. And this is hard for people to swallow. What do you mean? No, you have to earn my trust. No. In order for people to trust me, I must trust you first. In order for people to trust you, you must trust them first. It's a risk. Um, and that's why it becomes irrational, because that sounds like an irrational thought. I just said something that sounds irrational to you, but that's the formula that I've experienced and have kind of adhered my life to for over 30 years now, working in Omega. Um, the next irrational idea is that our success is indicated by the quantity of things that we have accumulated in our life rather than quality. Again, irrational, because sometimes we get attached to that. The more things I possess, I have more success. And of course, naturally, we know that's not true. Quality of our life is what gives us success rather than quantity. The in Egypt, they've been uncovering a lot of the old tombs and the lost city that they found. And the thing that I'm sorry, I have the hiccups, but the thing that I've always been fascinated by is in the king's tomb, King Tut's tomb, let's say, all of the gold and silver that they amassed and all of their riches, they put in the tomb, not because they thought it would take them with him, but it was to pay off the guy to get them across the river, pay off Hades to get them across the river Styx to the eternal life. That's one theory. And so, unfortunately, we've taken that theory out that we have to accumulate as much as we can to ensure the safety of our next life, and the quality of life has diminished. Although I have in recent months, I've definitely seen the quality where people are more focused now on quality rather than quantity. Of course, I think the pandemic dare I say, any value about the pandemic, but I think the value of the pandemic is that we became aware of the quality of our life and we started spending time with our loved ones and having quality time with them as opposed to what can we buy, what can we buy, what can we buy? Because we couldn't go out, we actually had to spend time with each other and being quality rather than just buying your son or daughter a toy or the next electronic video game. You had to spend time with them. We spent time with each other. And so again, that's an irrational idea by amassing quantity over quality. Um, Here's another irrational idea, but by discussing the inevitable death, you're going to make it happen faster. I know that, whatever you think, you perceive, it's going to project and come back to you. But, ladies and gentlemen, death is going to happen. I have yet to meet a person who has overcome death. So, death will happen. And it is better to be prepared for death and greet it like an old friend than to all of a sudden show up and you're panicked and you don't know what to do. Of course, that's a lesson I learned from George. Taking care of him, I served him and took care of him for the last 8 years of his life. And he was very prepared, almost on a daily basis, especially the last 2 years. We spoke about his death. And he changed his ideas. Like at first, he didn't want anyone to celebrate his death. And then towards the end, he was like, well, I want to honor Omega grads and let them have an opportunity. And he tried to use his death as an opportunity to help people surpass their fear of death. So that's an irrational idea. We should never talk about it. There's taboo topics. Never talk about it. You're going to draw it to you. Again, that's an emotional reaction. Now, if you have a rational experience and yeah, that you do realize that you're drawing things to you, then of course, naturally. But I'm talking about irrational ideas that it's going to make it worse. It's going to make it worse. What I'm alluding to is, the idea that when you talk about disease and talk about disease and talk about disease and talk about disease and talk about disease, most people end up getting sick and they manifest those symptoms. That's not what I'm adhering to here. I'm talking about you can talk about disease and discuss options of having to get over it, but don't be consumed with it. Again, the word is consumed. Same thing with death, not to be consumed with death. And the last thing I have to say about irrational ideas is that when somebody has an opposition to you, oftentimes we think they're irrational because they don't agree with me. That is an irrational idea. Everybody has an opinion. Everyone has a right to their opinions and their thoughts and ideas. And just because we disagree doesn't mean that you are irrational or I'm irrational because I don't come from the same position as you. Over here, I think about Copernicus. He was the first one to say, this Earth is not the center of the universe. The sun is the center of our solar system. The sun is the center. And, oh, that's an irrational idea. Or, of course, the Wright brothers, you're never going to fly. Irrational idea. Because it was an opposition to them. So people were often considered irrational. And unfortunately, some people were put to the stake because they didn't agree with everyone. So again, the idea, all of this list of irrational ideas is that we're sustaining emotional disturbances. And if we were to continue on thinking irrationally and irrationally, expecting to get a different result, as Spock would say, that is illogical. Look, I can do it. As Spock would say, that is illogical. What we want to strive to do is to break free from these irrational ideas and not let them consume us. That's the all important word here, not to be consumed. I know I'm a little long here and I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Thank you so much. And I think what I'd like to do is post these on Facebook so you'll have a list about all the things that I've mentioned. Have a wonderful evening, and I look forward to talking to you next week on Monday. And oh, can I remember what I said I was going to do? I am going to talk about, sorry, one moment, please. I'm going to talk about a walking contradiction. All right, until then, have a good evening. Bye now.